I disagree with the foundational the foundation, the principle in which this blackout thing is built upon, and that is the racism part of it.
That's right. Everybody's favorite Misfits frontman, or at least mine, is back at it again with another based and red pill take. This time on Blackout Tuesday, which is, admittedly, I didn't even really know it was happening until kind of much later in the day, but it's essentially a social media initiative. Some people say it's fake and it's just like a right-wing conspiracy troll to try and get people to shut up and stop talking about things. Other people say that it's just like a sign of solidarity, so people do talk about these sorts of things. I'm not entirely sure. In the music industry, they paused all business essentially for that day in observation of the killing of George Floyd and the recent protests against police brutality and racial profiling by law enforcement. In the music industry, this was spearheaded by two black women, Jamila Thomas and Brianna Agimang. I definitely butchered that. I'm so sorry. So while Michael Graves is not completely talking about the protests that have happened, he's specifically talking about the music industry's part in it.
So let me first say that again, I disagree with the foundational, the foundation, the principle in which this blackout thing is built upon. And that is the racism part of it. Now, I get that there's racism in the country. However, I disagree with the fact that it's so widespread, that it's so bad, that we all need to be panicked, that it's so baked into the cake. I as well disagree with the fact that this country is foundationally based upon hating black people.
Oh my fucking god. We already know this is going to be an absolute doozy of nothing but based, red-pilled nonsense. So right off the bat, he's saying he disagrees with the foundational principles of the blackout thing. Not even he disagrees that, that the blackout should occur generally, but the reasons that it's occurring. He's disagreeing fundamentally with the underlying assumption that there is systemic racism in the United States and that the hatred of black people, that racism is not a fundamental principle of the United States' founding. I mean, I'm not sure how you can say that about a country that was built on the enslavement of one race of people, African Americans or black people, and the genocide of another, being the indigenous peoples of North America. Give me the strength to make it through this.
It was not created for that. That's false. I also disagree with the two individuals from the music industry. In their statement, it says that black people are being hunted, and that's one of the reasons that we need to do this, because it's so bad that black people are being hunted.
Because they kind of are. Even if you're not talking about police brutality and the racial bias in the police force and the criminal justice system, wasn't it just 3 weeks ago that Ahmaud Arbery, I'm butchering that name, was murdered, literally hunted down and murdered by those two white rednecks? Pretty sure that just happened.
In this country, which is not true. Does a conversation need to be had about this? Absolutely. But what I put out to everybody is that what's causing all the violence out there, what's causing the violence in urban cities is not because white people hate black people, as well as this is. It's just being. So you have all of these people that believe that there's all this hate, and it's being pointed at Trump supporters, it's being pointed at Christians, it's being pointed now at anybody who doesn't agree with what they see.
It is not being pointed at anybody that doesn't agree with what they see. It's being pointed in large part at Trump supporters, and not just Christians, but fundamentalist Christians, because those are the kinds of people that are on the front lines of these racist movements. It's no longer the KKK members and the neo-Nazis, although they do play prominent roles. It's the Trump supporters and the Christian fundamentalists that are going batshit crazy over this stuff. I mean, what did you get after Black Lives Matter, you know, not just the movement, but became a slogan or whatever? What did you get? Immediately, you got all lives matter, trying to discredit or trying to diminish the severity or the legitimacy of the Black Lives Matter movement or the reason that it came about. That's who it is. It's fundamentalist Christians and Trump supporters, often two groups of people that overlap. So it's funny because to right-wingers, and particularly Republicans, it's always the leftists, it's always the liberals that have the victimhood complex, that are always so sad about being oppressed. And then you hear this shit. Let's continue, shall we?
That's coming from, for example, this blackout movement. I'm sensitive to this because I'm the person for the past 15 years. I'm the guy that has been called the racist.
I'm the victim. I mean, you just can't make this shit up.
I'm the guy that's been called the Nazi. I'm the guy that when we went to Edmonton, had the hate police there for him because of my Facebook and my Twitter and things that I've said.
Now, admittedly, I don't use Twitter very much, and I've known that Michael Graves has been a Republican for a long ass time, so I haven't really bothered, you know, trying to follow his personal social media accounts because it's just not crap I'd like to see. But considering he appeared on InfoWars as late as 2018, considering how they were talking about him posting content from Paul Joseph Watson, of all people, lots of things from Paul Joseph Watson, I forget what else it said, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he warranted a couple of those comments.
I'm the guy that about 15 years or 9, oh God, it's 2020. 16, 17 years ago was run out of the music industry because of saying things like this, expressing myself.
Expressing his support for the fucking Iraq war is what he was doing. Damn right you were fucking run out of it. I've said it once and I've said it again. He's like one of my favorite singers. He's got the voice of an angel, but Jesus Christ.
Expressing myself and disagreeing. So let me just back up again. I do not believe.
That's not just a disagreement. You supported the Iraq war, which, to your credit, you've came out and said you regrets that decision to support the war. But don't then act like you're the victim. You're the one being bullied because people were upset with you supporting a fucking warmongering administration.
That the violence that you see on the screens on your television sets, and the reason that all this is happening is much bigger and more complex. And I'm upset because it's being used as a way to whip everybody up. You know what I think that the music industry should do? I think the music industry should be looking at the culture of youth that they perpetuate and they create. Because when you are making billions of dollars off of people who are advocating for let me not go there. When you have artists,
Let me not go where, Michael? Where were you about to go? Because where he does go is honestly not that great, so I kind of wonder where the hell he was actually thinking of going.
Artists and white artists, but when the hip hop, the rap side, even pop, has created a culture, this thug culture, where they sexualize everything, and drug use is rampant. And people calling each other bitches and hoes and
Holy shit. I never thought I'd live to see the day where a punk rocker is going out of his way to berate kids for listening to a particular kind of music, you know. Oh, these damn kids these days, it's their hip-hop music that's making them act out. I mean, like, how many, you know, PORC campaigns, how many times have punk rockers and metalheads been chastised by society, by politicians, by lawmakers, for the music that they put out? It's obviously a bunch of horseshit. I myself actually did used to kind of believe that there was something inherently wrong in some of the hip hop industry, not just the industry, but like just how popular that music was, because all they would do is talk about, you know, like killing people and popping Xanax. And at the time, I knew a lot of people that were addicted to Xanax, were dying off things like this. It was more dying off opiates. But, you know, I knew Xanax had ruined people's lives. And at first, you know, at one point, I kind of thought, maybe it is the music. But actually, when you look deeper into it, as is the same with rock and roll and any other type of music, the music is a form to explain how people are feeling anyway. I doubt that if we didn't have, you know, modern trap, that we wouldn't have drug addiction, that we wouldn't have, you know, that we may not have a prescription drug problem, and to assert otherwise is pretty fucked. And beyond that, it's not like hip-hop or rap or trap or whatever is the only genre of music to talk about this sort of stuff. Happens in metal, happens in punk, happens in electronic music. It's not like the music is actually influencing kids to do these sorts of things. I mean, Michael Graves and the Misfits talk about all sorts of crazy things. I mean, Dig Up Her Bones, a song by the Misfits, written by Michael Graves, is about digging a dead body up in a graveyard, but you don't exactly see Misfits fans doing that. And it's so ridiculous, and it kind of hurts to see this being said by, you know, one of my favorite musicians. I've been to, like, maybe 4 Michael Graves shows when he's come to Montreal. I've listened to the Misfits since I was 14 or 15, he's always been my favorite of them. And just to hear him spout this total utter nonsense that sounds like it's coming from a concerned parent in the 1980s is mind-boggling, but it's also kind of demoralizing.
Respecting is cool, and stealing is awesome, and all of the things that you shouldn't be doing. That's what's baked into the culture. That's the families have been torn apart in the urban centers. And it's the policies and it's the rhetoric of the left and the progressive left and the policies that have come out of Democrats.
So let's get this straight. The poverty among urban black people, and this is, of course, all in the American context, is not the fault of the war on drugs. It's not the fault of mass incarceration, ripping away fathers from their families. It's not about systemic racism. What it's from is hip-hop music, the policies of the left and the progressive left particularly, and the policies of Democrats. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, there is something to say about how the policies of Democrats have not benefited any working people of any kind, because just like the Republicans, they're, you know, bought off and absolutely corrupt. But to argue that it's them and it's not the Republicans, because if anything, it's the Republicans much more. The reason that the Democrats are so shit is because they're too much like the Republicans.
In these cities, I'm not saying that the people on the right are without blame. I'm just saying mostly that
I'm not saying that the Republicans are completely without blame. I'm just saying mostly without blame.
Again, the policies and the reasons behind the urban centers becoming the way that they have for this reason, so that other people on the other side that disagree with me, we have gotten to the point where people like me and other people that I know, good people that they can't walk down the streets now because in fear of their fucking life.
I'd like to know who in particular, or what kind of people he's talking about that are afraid to walk down the street for fear of their lives.
That's the truth. It has gotten to that point. And Blackout Tuesday perpetuates that, because what's not being talked about from the music industry, except for maybe some people very quietly, is that for the past year, black unemployment has fallen to a record low. Unemployment rate for black workers fell to 6%. We set records in 2018 and parts of 2019.
He's literally just fucking regurgitating the MAGA bro talking points. Black unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. Yeah, unemployment in general has been, I mean, before the pandemic, of course, had been going down for a while anyway, but the types of jobs that people are getting, the types of jobs that were available, the pay of these jobs were nothing. I mean, like, what the hell, what fucking good is a job if you actually can't afford to pay the bills when you're working full-time, 40, 50 hours a week? What good is a fucking job if you don't have healthcare? What good is the job? Unemployment is important, but it's not the only thing. Clearly, if there was 0% unemployment, or whatever, 0.2% unemployment, and everyone were making $5 an hour, that would not be good. Now, it's not that bad, at least in most places it's not that bad. But it's like, it is not good enough. We have what is now called the working poor in the United States. I mean, you know, I think to a certain degree everywhere in Canada, but particularly in the United States, where you work full-time and you're still poor. You do not make enough to actually live.
Good things are and were happening in this country, whether it's economic these zones that they're creating for economic development. All right,
you're missing the point.
Absolutely based Loki is pointing it out, that is not the point of the blackout. That is not the point of these protests. The point of these protests are people being completely fed up with the lack of action on the systemic racism in the criminal justice system and on the part of the police force.
So,
and
what's the point that I missed?
So, guys,
Comrade Loki in for the kill.
So, like, listen. I know I see the conversations out there, and it's just very like, when someone's out there and you disagree with their views, it's just like you guys just want to bash it. But here he is, my best fucking friend, and we fucking clash on a lot of different things all the time. And this is the part where I think he's wrong, and I'll try my best to articulate how I.
For people that don't know, Loki is the guitarist in the Michael Graves band. Pretty decent fucking guitarist, really nice guy, and a comrade.
I see things. You're spewing off numbers about how things are getting better, and maybe they were getting better as far as unemployment goes. All right, but that's not what this is about. This is about there is a systemic problem in this country where black folks, minorities, don't get a fair shake as other people do, and that's the issue here.
But
it's
going demonstrable
on for a long time now.
But it's a demonstrable fact to cite actual data that shows that black people actually are and do get a fair shot at things.
Holy shit. I mean, like, it just really hurts to see somebody that, you know, that you love so much musically, an artist that you appreciate so much, just regurgitate this whole fucking bullshit Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings, simplistic, cherry picking, where you take, a statistic like that and you say, you look how good it is. How you can't fucking, you can't argue with that. One, it's not the point. And two, just because you can cherry pick a couple of facts that in isolation do seem like good things, doesn't mean that the entire situation can be negated because of these like few statistics that actually don't necessarily point towards something that's that good anyway.
And what about Chinese people? And what about Latin people and immigrants and poor white folks, single mothers? Everybody.
All lives matter. You fucking heard it here first.
Has a certain yoke around their neck right? Everybody's got some sort of yoke around their neck, and everybody hits some sort of adversary at some, adversarial times in their life. But if a couple of months ago, we're having conversations about hordes of people walking to this country. They're walking from places like Honduras to get to America. You think they're coming here for the systemic racism?
They're not coming here for the systemic racism. They're coming here in spite of the systemic racism, because the conditions in their home country are so abhorrent that almost anything is better than that. The abhorrent conditions, by the way, caused by American foreign policy, the drug wars that are ravishing Latin America, particularly Mexico, are the drug wars started and perpetuated by the United States. The authoritarian tendencies of all Latin American countries, whether they're doing well or not, the authoritarian nature of Cuba, for instance, these are all the result of the Monroe Doctrine and the history of American foreign policy, particularly in the 20th century. So it's just hilarious when right-wingers try and use this as some sort of fear tactic. He's saying, oh, there's like an army of them marching towards us. But then saying like, oh, would they really be coming here if it was so fucking bad? Checkmate, libs.
Coming here for the opportunity that they're not going to get? There's no place in the world. There's no place on this planet. Black, white, green, purple, red, blue, it doesn't matter. If you are...
Right-wingers also love saying that. I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, or purple. I don't see color.
Hardworking, and you're good. You're a good person. You treat other people good, and you get out of bed in the morning with a fucking good attitude, and you show up for work. You're gonna be all right.
Absolute utter horseshit. Social mobility and economic mobility in the United States is the lowest that it's been in well over a century. I was gonna say centuries, but I actually think it was that it was probably worse in the Gilded Age. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. But social mobility is the worst that it has been in a long, 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 long time.
You're going to be all right in this country. And it doesn't matter if you're white or black or blue or green.
It's a fairy tale. A lot of them aren't given a fair shot to even fucking work that hard, Michael. They're in these cities with a fucking foot stepped on their neck, to not even be allowed to go to get education, to be a hard worker, or fucking a person that can be productive in the society. They're not given the chance to do it. That is the problem.
Maybe that they're not given the chance is not there for them. The chance is there for them
because we
certainly
put them
because
there.
Not we, not me, not you,
not me and you. No, but don't. This is not a me and you thing. Which is, I think you're taking a very personal approach to this. This is not about you.
And that is a point that conservatives dwell on a lot. They always say, oh, I didn't do this. I personally am not responsible for this. Well, look at me. I worked hard and this all paid off. It isn't about you. It's about the structure of society that no one person is responsible for, but that we all collectively, at least, white people. I'm, a little less than white, but anybody with very white skin benefits from that system, benefits at least to a greater extent than other people.
I understand that it's not about.
This is about
I understand
the
that
problem
it's not
in the
about
country.
me.
No one's calling you I know you're not a racist. I'm fucking with you every day. I'm not a racist either. But it's not about me and you. It's about giving the chance to other people who feel they feel that there's inequality in this country, and they're right. Okay, and that's what this blackout.
Is Michael Graves racist? It doesn't seem likely that he actually has any hateful emotions towards anyone, but particularly here, and sometimes in general, he is perpetuating those racial stereotypes, those racist talking points. And so, to a certain extent, it's almost irrelevant what you personally feel, whether or not you personally hate a group of people based on their ethnic identity, gender identity, their sexuality or anything. What's mostly problematic about it is perpetuating that line of thought, those talking points. You keep putting it out into the ether, and maybe you don't personally hate groups of people, But some people that actually do, actual racists, will take that information and use it as just another way to justify their beliefs.
That thing was about, to give them a voice, to have, for them to have a fucking, let's pause everything for a second and let's talk about it.
Okay,
That's what
the
this
person.
was.
Okay, but the poor black person that wakes up, or the poor white person, or the poor Latin person, or whoever that wakes up in this country,
It's
in
it's
say
absolutely
in downtown Baltimore,
Right.
without the I don't know. Everybody has an opportunity to have an education in this in wherever you go.
That is not true, particularly in a country where it costs tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to attend university, to attend college. And the people that can actually get student loans at the end of it graduate with tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Most people can't afford that. Most people can't get that far. So it's not actually that everybody has the right to a decent education. And in the United States, not everybody actually has access to a proper elementary or proper high school education, because the public system has been defunded for years and for decades. So the system privileges children with more affluent parents that can send them to charter schools.
It's not all equal, and you know that. There's a reason why
I'm not
you move to
saying
certain
that it's all.
neighborhoods for your
I'm not
kids to have a
saying
better
that it's all
education.
equal. I'm not saying that it's all equal. What I'm
Right.
saying is it's not because of racism. It's not because white people hate black people. That's not.
No,
That's such a simplest, like an oversimplified, reductionist way of putting it. It's not that everybody, or it's not that all white people, or a majority of white people hate black people. It's not about hate in people's personal opinions. It's about a systemically racially biased system. So, it acts like that on its own. It doesn't need to be backed up by a bunch of racists. It's not like you have to have a board of racists sitting behind the wheel flipping switches the entire way through.
and
That's
that's where I think that's where you're malfunctioning. It's not that. You're right. It's not because white people hate black people. We're past that to an extent, but there's
that's what
a
this whole
problem
blackout
with
thing is.
patriarchy.
That's what
No.
the whole blackout
No.
thing is based
No.
on. Is
You-
racial
no.
injustice.
No.
That's what it says.
It's racial injustice. It's racial injustice. It's systemic injustice. It's systemic injustice in the police force. It's a systemic injustice in our leaders. Systemic injustice in local law enforcement, in local government. It exists. It's real. As a
Okay.
whole, yeah, we've come a long way, dude. We treat each
But
other
the-
like equals. From man to man, we treat each other like equals. But that does not mean that the local government treats each other like equal. That is not what that means.
Okay, I agree with you, but the statement that's coming out of the music industry is saying that the show can't go on because our people are being hunted and killed. The mission is to hold the industry at large, including major corporations and their partners who benefit from the efforts, struggles, and success of black people accountable. To that end, it's the obligation of these entities to protect and empower the black communities that have made them disproportionately wealthy in ways that are measurable and transparent. Now, I definitely agree with that. I agree that people have gotten rich off of very rich other black people. Can you please take the Jordan Vallejo, who doesn't want to listen to white dude's opinion on racial justice? Let's get that injustice off the screen.
Little butthurt at that comment, isn't he?
Because then just
I
turn
don't
it
know.
off.
I didn't know.
So this is actually my point, is that it's not that I agree with more of what's being said than not. What I don't want to see, and what's happened, is we have been manipulated into this, into such a corner that that there's people out there burning buildings down and desecrating churches and attacking each other and hurting each other and killing each other, and the media is whipping us into it. And when we
So right here, he's trying to suggest that the riots and the escalation to violence that has happened in the protests is because of some sort of fake outrage over the racial injustice. The problem with that is that in most cases, the protests have been escalated to the points of violent riots from the police. The police have been the ones shooting rubber bullets, pepper bullets, tear gas, spraying mace, all unprovoked. And obviously, when you do things like that, you're going to whip the crowd up into a very angry frenzy. And then when the chaos ensues, from people running around trying to avoid getting shot, trying to avoid getting pepper spray, trying to avoid the tear gas, it's going to devolve into something like that. It always does. I live in Montreal, and we had a very small march on Sunday, I believe it was May 31st or June 1st, and it was completely peaceful. There were only a few thousand people there. It was completely peaceful until closer to 9 o'clock, when everyone was kind of pouring out. And then the police, all of a sudden had declared it illegal and started firing tear gas into the crowd. Well, what happened after that? People started running around like fucking crazy. Panic ensued. And then people started breaking windows and stuff and vandalizing. And actually, Steve's Music Store, which is like the biggest music store in Montreal, kind of got looted a little bit, unfortunately. It's very unfortunate, but, it's the police that have been escalating these protests. There are videos all over the place of the police instigating things, going undercover and actually starting the riots by trying to break windows. There's evidence of them placing piles of bricks in the middle of the crowds and things like that. So they're actively trying to whip up this sort of hysteria and make these protests devolve into violence like this, so that they can kind of win the PR campaign. It's exactly what they did in the 1960s as well. You could talk to anybody that were in the anti-Vietnam protests and the like. The cops routinely went undercover, went into the crowds, and tried to whip people up in a frenzy like that. And it kind of worked back then. Now people are seeing through the bullshit a little bit. But yeah. So we're going to stop it there. It's a very long video. It's nearly 2 hours long. I'll leave a link to the video in the description. So if you want, you can check it out yourself. Loki, which is the guitarist, who is the one that's having the primary discussion with Graves, he's great. He's a comrade for sure. I don't know if he's actually a socialist or anything like that, but he speaks later about how he was in the protests, the Women's March in Mexico and all that. And I can't remember where he was in the United States, but he went to these protests and he's very pro it. So it's a nice conversation, but it's a little sad to see somebody that you admire so much from a musical perspective take such a, quite frankly, brain dead right wing bullshit take on something as serious as this.